If meditating every day alone could cure severe depression, I'd be starring in my own show called Dalai Lama the Musical, a spiritual shit show podcast with Suzanne Soul, episode 21. Hello, darling lovers, and welcome to the Spiritual Shit Show podcast, where we get into the total hell realm the healing and spiritual awakening journey can be. I'm your host, Suzanne Soul, comedian, lifelong spiritual student, and I'm sharing some of the nutritious treats I've learned along my journey that have helped me and that I hope help you too. Okay, so buckle up, buttercup, because we're diving into a topic that is near and dear to my dopamine deprived heart, and that is mental health and spirituality. Okay, so first of all, I gotta do my disclaimer and say that I am not a licensed mental health professional, and the opinions I am sharing are based purely on my personal experience and are not a replacement for qualified mental health treatment. Always seek the advice of your health provider regarding any concerns you have about your specific mental health needs. And if you are experiencing a mental health crisis, please contact emergency services immediately. Thank you, and have the best day you possibly can. So I'm sharing about my personal experience and mental health journey, what has helped me, and the insights I have gained. And FYI, skis, you wouldn't know it to look at me. But I'm not perfect, and neither is my mental health. Waka waka. But it's much, much, much better than it used to be, and I am grateful as fuck for that shit. So some of y'all may relate to my experience and my view, and some folks may see it differently. But as all of us good spiritual students know, in this here physical world, perspectives are subjective because no one has the same exact myriad of qualifiers that make up their personal view of shit. Any hoodles, just a little mind-opening aside. Now back to our regularly scheduled program. I believe that taking care of your mental health through traditional methods like therapy, counseling, and taking medication if you need it doesn't make you any less spiritual. Come at me. It's in the how, not the what. Hear me out. Let's be real. A lot of people have mixed feelings about mental health resources like therapy and medication, and I get it. Some folks had a therapist who did nothing but repeat, "And how does that make you feel?" until they wanted to run screaming out of the office. Others know someone who got put on the wrong meds and felt like a zombie or worse. Bad experiences happen, and if that's all you've seen, of course you'd be skeptical. Okay, not everyone, but there are some people in the spiritual crowd that believe that talking about your struggles is continuing to wallow in your low vibrational shit and allowing that shit to expand. Or that medication is a band-aid instead of real healing. And hey, if that's been their truth, I'm not here to argue. But here's the thing. What if that's not the full picture? What if therapy isn't about just complaining, but about learning how to move through life with less suffering? What if the right medication doesn't make you numb? It actually helps you show up for yourself. Because healing isn't a one-size-fits-all journey. Some people thrive on meditation and breath work. Others need a solid therapist to help them untangle their shit. And some people do both. There's no right way. There's only what works for you. Because if you need mental health support to keep your brain from acting like a browser with 50 tabs open while running on dial-up, or from sinking like a lost sock in the drier black hole of existence, it's okay. I don't think God is judging you or your therapy or your prescription. If anything, God might be saying, "Oh, finally, for the love of me. You were really a hot mess, babe." JK. I think some of us have internalized this idea that real spirituality means we should be able to suffer through our mental health struggles like the ascetics of India, who spend their lives sitting in caves alone meditating, living on 1 grain of rice a day and sitting in the rain wearing only a loincloth. And if that's what you're into, great. But not every spiritual practice works for every person. And that one is like the extreme sports version of spiritual practices. But think about it. Buddhist monks look pretty comfortable. Just look at their uniforms. Buddhist monks easily have the best work uniforms. They're colorful, they look nice, No restriction or tightness, just total flow, which is obvs totes apropos. But seriously, folks, some spiritual minded folks say stuff like just raise your vibration, like there's a dial where you can stop being traumatized, or just meditate more. How much more? I have a full time job, you know. But I don't think going to therapy or taking medication, if you need it, is a betrayal of your faith or a denial of your spirituality. To me, taking care of yourself is actually an act of spiritual responsibility. Because done mindfully, it is an act of self care, which is an act of self love, which is a spiritual practice. Can I get an amen? I don't think getting support for your mental health makes you any less devoted to your spiritual practice or your enlightenment. In fact, I think it can help you feel more devoted to your spiritual practice and enlightenment. Let me explain it in a metaphor. Sally wants to climb a mountain, so she starts from where she's standing on the ground and starts climbing. Jackie also has dreams of climbing the same mountain, but she is starting from a 40-foot hole in the ground. So before she can start climbing the mountain, she has to climb her way out of the hole so she can get to ground zero, and then she can start climbing the mountain. And that's what it can be like for those of us who are challenged with mental health issues. So maybe Jackie calls out, "Hey, I'm stuck down here in this hole. Can someone help me?" And Terry, the therapist, comes along and throws a rope into the hole and helps Jackie learn how to climb the rope and out of the hole. And if she's having a hard time holding on to the rope, he might possibly prescribe her some medication to help with her functionality so she can hold on to the rope so she can climb out of the hole. My point is, some of us need mental health support to get to ground zero before we can really climb with our spiritual practices. And yes, spirituality and spiritual practices can be very helpful with that part of the journey as well. Listen, I've said it before and I'll say it again. You're never not spiritual. It's like when you tell yourself you're not being spiritual or acting spiritual or dressing spiritual or whatever the fuck, it's not a realistic assessment because your spiritualesque deliciousness isn't something you have to present like you're acting in a play or something you have to look like you're attending a Halloween party. Because, my gorgeous nugget, you are always spiritual, 24/7, even when you're in a funk, or when you're making a stink, or even when you fucking stink. So that means the mental health support you will get will also be spiritual. You are a spiritual being having a human experience, and sometimes it's crazy, it's sometimes fucked up or depressing, but it's all spiritual, boo. The only thing that makes you feel not spiritual is when you believe you're not spiritual. But that don't change reality with a capital R. And as you recognize that you are a spiritual being, it does not mean you have to bypass your human experience. It means you can hold your humanity with compassion. It means when your brain is misfiring, you don't beat yourself up for it. And it means when you need help, your heart actually helps you take the help. It means understanding that you are not just your pain, not just your anxiety, not just your depression. You are so much bigger than that. But also, don't get it twisted. Your spiritual deliciousness doesn't mean your mental health issues just magically go away. Because if meditating every day alone could cure severe depression, I'd be starring in my own show called Dalai Lama, the musical. You still have to do the work and actively participate in your own healing, but spirituality helps. It reminds you that you are more than what you are struggling with. Now, let's talk about the two famous mental health issue champions we love to hate. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing the undisputed tag team champions of mental chaos, depression, and anxiety. Depression, slow, heavy, and the master of canceled plans and existential dread. It whispers, nothing matters, while pinning you to the couch. And anxiety, fast, sweaty, and screaming, everything matters, while making you check the stove 14 times after you leave the house. Together, they're a nightmare duo. One says, don't do anything. The other one yells, do everything now! They don't fight fair, but guess what? You can learn their moves and take back the belt. All right, let's talk about depression. That sneaky little bastard. Because it doesn't always show up the way you think it will. You might not be lying in bed all day sobbing into your pillow like a melodramatic Victorian orphan. No. Depression is way slicker than that. It creeps up on you, rearranges your brain furniture, and suddenly everything feels like too much effort. You ever stare at a text message for 3 days because responding feels like running a marathon with cement shoes on? Or look around your apartment and think, wow, it looks like a crime scene in here. I should probably clean. But I think I'll just sit here instead. Or maybe you're out here fully functioning, going to work, paying your bills, doing all the right things, but inside, it feels like a dumpster fire. That's depression, baby. And depression don't play fair. It will gaslight your ass into thinking you're just lazy. You should be grateful. Why are you even sad? Nothing is technically wrong, so why do you feel like a literal trash heap? Depression is not just sadness. It's exhaustion, it's brain fog, it's emotional numbness, it's feeling like your own distant cousin. It's your own mind turning on you like your stomach after a night of eating hot wings. And sometimes you might not even realize it until you're deep in it. Yeah, depression doesn't always slap you in the face. Sometimes it convinces you that the half-mast version of yourself you're experiencing is just who you are. And that's why getting support is important, because sometimes you don't even realize you need help. And in this corner, our pal anxiety. Anxiety is a sneaky-ass motherfucker itself, because half the time you don't realize it's running the show. It's not always a full-blown panic attack where you're gasping for air and convinced you're dying. Sometimes it's just you replaying a conversation from 2 weeks ago at 2 a.m. and deciding with 100% certainty that you definitely embarrassed yourself and should probably go live in the woods forever. Anxiety will fuck your ass up in ways that make zero logical sense. You'll be exhausted, but somehow also wired at the same time. You'll spend an hour hyping yourself up to make a simple phone call only to feel completely drained afterwards, like you just ran a marathon. You'll be at a fun social event, laughing and talking, while your brain is simultaneously drafting the world's longest "how did I fuck up with this person" analysis for later. And let's talk about the physical symptoms. Because anxiety doesn't just live in your thoughts, it can affect your whole dang body. Like random chest tightness? Check. Stomach acting like you just drank a gallon of expired milk? Check. Shoulders up to your ears like you're bracing for an impact that never comes? Absolutely. Anxiety isn't just thinking the worst case scenario, it's feeling it in your body, even when nothing is actually wrong. The rub? It convinces you that this is part of your personality, that you're just bad at making decisions, awkward in social situations, or chronically stressed for no reason. But no, sweetie, that's just the anxiety whispering bullshit in your ear and making life harder than it needs to be. The good news? You don't have to believe everything your anxious brain tells you. Anxiety is loud, but it's not always right, and learning how to turn down the volume on that sneaky motherfucker is where the real magic happens. Some folks say you can meditate your way out of depression and anxiety, or yoga your way through PTSD, and maybe that's all some folks need. I'm not saying it doesn't work. Yoga can be incredibly beneficial as part of self-care and wellness, but it may not be enough by itself for everyone. Because, girl, if I could own my way to mental stability, I wouldn't be here talking about how I had to drag my ass to therapy for 25 years because my brain was a circus and all the clowns had taken over. Some folks may hear the word therapy and immediately picture themselves lying on a couch telling their problems to a guy with a clipboard who randomly goes, Interesting. While he secretly doodles pictures of cats. But it's more than that, babe. And therapy isn't just complaining, it's actually learning how to live with less suffering. For realsies, effective therapy helps you understand yourself in ways that help you to navigate life with more clarity, ease, and emotional stability. It teaches you how to identify and work through unhelpful patterns, manage overwhelming emotions, and communicate more effectively in your relationships. Instead of just pushing through stress, anxiety, or past wounds, it helps you process them in a way that allows you to move forward without carrying unnecessary emotional weight. And a good therapist creates a safe space where you can express what you're feeling without judgment or pressure. They can help you understand your triggers, help with emotional regulation, and they can help you find new ways of coping that actually support your well-being. Most importantly, therapy is about support, guidance, and personal growth. So, I have struggled with mental health issues my entire life. Anxiety, depression, all the things. In an interesting twist of fate, I started my healing and spiritual journey at the same time. I was in my late 20s. I had just started therapy. And a friend introduced me to the Agape International Spiritual Center in Los Angeles, where I was living at the time. From there, I started reading and listening to all kinds of spiritual teachers like Alan Watts, Wayne Dyer, Marianne Williamson, and began meditating. When I started therapy, I was in incredible pain. I was self-medicating with pot and alcohol. I have shared that I am a proud member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And the funny slash not funny thing about using drugs and alcohol to escape your pain is that when you sober up, like a bad magic trick, there it is again. Ta-da! But I didn't stop there. I used relationships to try to escape myself, and I moved all the time to change my environment. But as most people know, that shit doesn't work because everywhere you go, there you are. And none of those escape routes take the pain away because the pain is within you calling out for your help. But there you are, trying to fix it outside of you with something or someone or somewhere. Tell her what she's won, Bob. Why, she's won not fixing her problems outside of herself again. Whatever ways I tried, I couldn't outrun my pain. Inside my pain were childhood traumas, abusive relationships, years of addiction. And by the time I finally reached out for help, I was in so much emotional pain. I was just trying to get through the day. And sometimes that was hard. Starting therapy for me was like opening the door to a whole new world. Learning to see myself with a compassion and understanding I didn't know I was allowed to have for myself. Having my feelings validated was like being born as myself for the first time. Feeling heard, feeling respected, feeling like my own human being. It was all new territory. I was afraid to venture beyond what I knew, but the pain pushed me beyond the fear to get help. It was a long road, and it wasn't a straight line. And sometimes I took 10 steps back and stayed there for 3 years, and then the pain would push me back into my healing process. Through my healing journey, I worked with various helpful healing modalities, and I thought I'd share some of them with you. There's good old talk therapy, which is just your regular type of therapy where you talk with your therapist about what's happening for you, your feelings, what triggers you, and things that are holding you back. And your therapist helps you work through those things so that you can grow and heal. And then there's EMDR, or eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. This is where the therapist guides you in rhythmic eye movements, like side to side, kind of what your eyes do when you're in a deep REM sleep, through sensory stimulation, and has you recall traumatic memories. What it does is assists people in bringing up deeper recollections of what they're storing in their memories that is affecting their mental health. Look it up. Highly recommended. At one point in my life, I was having terrible panic attacks, and 6 months weekly helped me. And then there's somatic therapy, in which the therapist helps you release damaging, pent up emotions in your body by using various mind body techniques and encouraging body awareness, which helps people recognize where they hold tension in their body, emotional movement, using movement to regulate the nervous system. I also benefited from group therapy, getting support from others who are also on the healing path, and hearing others share their struggles helps you to feel less alone in your pain. I can tell you with 100% confidence, therapy saved my life. I used to be one of those folks who saw taking medication as a cop out. I used to think that taking medication for depression or anxiety was a total cop out, and anyone who took meds was not truly walking the spiritual path. But, girl, you gotta start somewhere. Because if you can't get to a functional state, it's very difficult to be consistent with spiritual practices so they can take hold and transform you in amazing ways. So you may need an assist to help you. You know the old Irish joke. A city boy from Dublin goes to the country to his cousin's wedding, and he forgets the way. So he stops and asks a farmer for directions. The farmer looks at him, scratches his head, and says, "Oh, I know the way. But if I were you, I wouldn't start from here." Listen, I love a good spiritual practice, but if deep breathing alone could take away depression, I'd be the happiest motherfucker around. But I'm not going to lie, meditation, spiritual community, and spiritual teachings have changed my life. But so has my depression medication. That's right, folks. I take medication for depression. And I went many years trying not to take medication for my depression, feeling the same way as people in some spiritual circles feel, that it would numb me out. I wouldn't feel like a person. I wouldn't connect to my spirituality. I wouldn't feel, etc., etc. And it is a journey to find the right medication and dosage. And some medications are not great fits for some people. But let's be honest, some medications are not great fits for anyone. So that's why I agree with trying all other alternatives first, 100%. And if you've seen therapy or meds go wrong, I get why you'd be skeptical. Not every therapist is a good fit, and sometimes finding the right medication feels like being trapped in a fun house filled with crazy mirrors and a poor sense of direction. And also, I am a very big advocate of, if you're taking meds, your ass should be in therapy too. Otherwise, where are we going with this? What I was told by my therapist at the time, and eventually believed after I started the meds, was that they would help the therapy work better. And they did. Some of us just need a bit more help out of the hole. And in all honesty, once I started taking depression medication, I wished I would have started it 20 years ago. And as a side note, this wasn't my first time taking medication in general. During my panic attack era I talked about a few moments ago, before I found out about EMDR, I took anti-anxiety meds for a bit. I was an actor on a national tour in a musical comedy, and mid-tour, I started having panic attacks every time we would go to a new city. But I really wanted to keep the job, so on a break, I went to a doctor and got a prescription for anti-anxiety meds. They worked for the tour, and I was grateful to be able to finish. But eventually, they started not to work well for me. I had started the EMDR by then, and when I would take the meds, I would feel kind of off and like they were actually starting to make me feel more anxious. My personal theory is that maybe because the EMDR so successfully helped my panic attacks and anxiety, maybe my body no longer needed the meds. Either way, you see, the journey of caring for your mental health ain't a straight line. Going to therapy and or taking medication, if that's what your mental health care provider believes is best for you, and after you've been working together for a while and you trust them, is not spiritual. If you need medication and you're also walking the spiritual and healing path to uncover the obstacles and the wounds and the trauma of your life so that you can heal, I think it's okay. Because you're not just letting the medication be your only solution or using it like a band-aid. You're taking the medication and also actively working on your healing and toward your evolution. Note, I just want to say that I am not advocating that people just take medication willy-nilly. I'm saying that people who feel like they might need to look into it or whose mental health professional is suggesting they take medication, that they don't feel bad about it, like they're failing or being a spiritual cop-out. The World Health Organization defines mental health as a state where a person can cope with the normal stresses of life, work productively, and contribute to their community. It's about having enough emotional bandwidth to deal with life without wanting to throw your phone into the lake every time something goes wrong. Being able to sit with your feelings without being steamrolled by them. It's knowing when to push through and when to take a damn nap. It's recognizing that your brain is part of your body, and like any other part, it sometimes needs care. And listen, having mental health issues doesn't mean you're weak or broken or failing at life. It means your brain, for whatever reason, genetics, environment, trauma, stress, biochemistry, or a chaotic combo of all of the above, is struggling a bit to regulate things. And that struggle is valid. You're not making it up. You're not being dramatic, and you sure as hell aren't alone. The good news? Help exists. Professional mental health support, lifestyle changes, spiritual practices and teachings, and a whole world of coping tools exist. Not to fix you because you're not broken, but to help you manage things so you can actually live your life instead of just surviving it. And of course, I have to share some of the awesome ways spiritual practice can help us with our mental health. I mean, just recognizing that you're a spiritual being having a human experience helps take a lot of the pressure off. Practices like meditation, prayer, gratitude, and self-reflection can help regulate the mind. I also liked adding spiritual counsel and spiritual workshops into the mix. They were very helpful, helping me to be more patient and nurturing with myself while I was healing through difficult stuff. For me, spiritual practice and teachings were one of the healing modalities I used to climb out of the hole in the ground. But once I got to ground zero, those same spiritual practices now help me continue to expand and transform, grow, and evolve. And yes, I still pay attention to my mental health. And when I feel like I'm emotionally overwhelmed by a life event, I reach out for support. Okay, so let's get one thing straight. When it comes to mental health, spirituality, and healing, there is no one-size-fits-all approach. What works for one person might not work for the other, and that's okay. The most important thing is that you find out what works for you. Maybe mindfulness and meditation keep you grounded. Soups. Maybe therapy is your lifeline. Amazeballs. Maybe medication helps you function and feel balanced. Great. Maybe you need all of the above. Hell yes. The point is, it's your choice. You get to decide what feels right for your mind, body, and soul. The key is learning how to listen to yourself and figure out what actually helps you. So it's a matter of trial and error. Just try things and see how you feel, because you won't know if something works until you actually give it a shot. So give yourself permission to explore, experiment, and trust what feels right. Whatever path you choose, as long as it's helping you move toward healing, is the right one. So if you've been considering whether you might need a little support for your mental health, maybe this is your sign to explore that a bit. If you're struggling and you know you need support, that is not weakness. That is wisdom. And although it can be difficult, the healing journey is incredible. I'll end with the poem The Guest House by poet Rumi, because I think it speaks to seeing all of our feelings and emotions and all of our healing work as sacred. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival. A joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still, treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. All right, my loves. Remember, spirituality isn't about being perfect. It's about being your delicious, authentic, slightly messy, and gorgeous self. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. This has been the Spiritual Shit Show podcast. My name is Suzanne Soul, and I'll see you on the next one. All right, darling, roll it, you miracle of miracles.